Greetings and hello from Brian and
Brad.
we're two blind brothers. We run a cause-driven clothing company, but what we wanted to take some time out of our lives to make a compendium of videos on what it's like growing up, living, and thriving with Stargardt's disease, because we get these questions from thousands of people every year. So we thought we would make a little video series to try and help out people who have reached out and people that haven't. So today we are going to talk about
The psychology of Stargardt's disease.
And Brad, why are you able to talk about this?
Because I have a beautiful voice.
That is true. Brad also has a master's in psychology, and as our mom said to me one time, you are an expert on being a kid with visual impairment. So his is a little bit more tangible, mine is from mom. Both great.
Here's how I would frame this issue. You have Stargardt's disease. Is the psychological effect of that going to ruin your life and stop you from succeeding? I want to make this very, very simple. The problem with Stargardt's disease is not the vision impairment. It's the potential effect on your self-esteem. And just to break this down a little bit, self-esteem is your belief in your ability to understand and affect and compete in the normal world that we all live in reality. So when you get told that you have bad eyesight and it's not curable, there's a risk that you decide, okay, I'm broken and I'm not as capable as other people. This is something we hear from people all the time in this community, and it kills us because we were very lucky to have a mother and father that really didn't let the vision impairment be an excuse for anything else in our lives. So we want to frame up just a couple ideas that will help prevent you from falling into what really is a trap of this disease, and we see as one of the most significant issues associated with being diagnosed with Stargardt's disease.
The first thought is, let's build a little box where I'm not going to have any problems, and just live inside of that. What you will find is that box is going to stunt you a lot more than it's allowing you to grow. And what I mean by try is always be willing to do new activities. You know, in high school, as a great example, I played football and lacrosse, two things you would never associate with visual impairment. And if you were just looking at me, you'd probably say he's going to be terrible at them. I was. No, I'm kidding. I was better than I'd expect. And what that taught me is a very valuable lesson of, don't assume you're going to be bad at something just because you can't see well. Actually try at it and find out that you can or can't succeed, because the worst thing that happens is you just are bad at it, and then you go on and you move to something else.
It's really interesting to be diagnosed with Stargardt's disease, because all of a sudden you're faced with a number of challenges. I think what gets lost in this process is that some of these challenges may teach you lessons that are more valuable than the vision impairment is detrimental. Let me give you some examples. When Brian and I were in elementary school, we had to walk up to the board to see it. Normally, that'd be very tough for a kid that was worried about the social pressure, about bullies, but we're forced into that situation, and we learned a level of assertiveness at that age because of it. We talk in one of our videos about social situations, about how you have to take accountability for the conversation, because you don't know who you're talking to all the time. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you, buddy. How's your summer been? Oh, okay, this is Dan. I figured out who it is. You know, you are learning this skill, this social calibration, this social prowess that you may not have had if not for the vision impairment. Certainly, it's terrible to have bad vision, but I'd like to argue here that you end up finding these little gifts through some of those challenges. And we're very lucky right now that we don't live in a world where Brian and I have to rely on going out into the wilderness and like hunting down a deer that we can't see. We'd probably end up shooting ourselves. Technology has leveled the playing field. So much so that I'd like to make the case that there's no excuse for not getting a proper education, finding proper work, making friendships, staying healthy. This condition that we've been hit with is no longer the sentence that it was even decades ago. The biggest risk of Stargardt's disease is that you let it affect your self-esteem. You're going to be hit with awkward situations. You're going to have that moment where some kid picks on you or picks on a loved one or your son or daughter because of their eye condition. You're going to have somebody who doesn't pass the test because they didn't have the right magnifying tools or the large print test in that moment, and now they're not allowed to retake it. You're going to have that situation where you didn't get the job and you think it's because they found out that you're visually impaired. These are setbacks, but they're not definitive of the life you're going to live. In fact, it may be teaching you probably the most valuable thing you can learn, which is how to face rejection and become unfazed.
And to add that, there are going to be a million awkward moments throughout your life. Walking into the women's restroom by accident, walking past a friend who gets angry at you for not seeing them, getting called on by a teacher to read aloud when you can't see the book, tripping over something small, walking into something. All of these are such tiny moments, and you have to not let them bother you. It is the biggest secret to this whole thing of being able to laugh at those moments, because they are hysterical when you actually can reflect on them in a week or in a day or in a month or in a year. You're going to find them funny, so find them funny in that moment, and it's going to add a lot of joy to your life.
So you get diagnosed with Stargardt's, you have that moment where you get teased or you can't do something, and you go inside yourself and you come up with this idea that you're not as good as everybody else. You now use it as an excuse to not try things. When you do poorly on a test, you say it's because you didn't get the lesson in the class. When somebody doesn't like you, it's because of your eyesight. When you have a failure, you attribute it to that, and you stop competing. That is a very lonely, very depressing life, and it is not reality. There are tons of examples, not just Brian and I, of people who have been very successful, who are super well adjusted, who are competing on the highest levels of society across industries and in every facet. And the truth is that this condition is not an excuse for a poor psychology.
So this has been our video on psychology around Stargardt's disease. If you have found anything in here that really rings out to you, or you have your own beliefs that you know somebody should hear if they were recently diagnosed, please put them in the comments down below, because that is how we're going to make this even better, as having more voices. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.